welcome everybody. I would like to invite everybody to unmute themselves and just say hello, where you're from. Hi, David.
Hey, Gerhard, how are you?
Are you in Madison?
I am in Massachusetts, actually, Boston
Yeah.
area.
Which company are you with?
I have an advisory firm. I work with small, lower middle market companies on growth and access to capital.
Oh, wonderful.
Nice.
Sales is a big part of what I do.
Well, we are all salespeople.
Yes, we are.
Sure. Hi, Andy.
And
Thanks
for
for
those, hi,
joining us
David,
today.
for those who think they're not in sales, they're in sales.
Yeah, I'm with you entirely.
Jeff, how are you doing?
Hi,
Thank you for
Gerhard. Good to see you again.
good to see you.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Hi, Andy. I signed up for Gerhard Sales 3.0, and then I signed up. I'm like,
Good to see you, Jeff.
good to see you.
I want to start us off by introducing Andy Miller. He is a wonderful person, a prolific author. He has run successful companies, and he's an expert in hiring. There's an interesting number, which is $5.7 billion in organic growth that he has helped achieve his clients. He built an international software company, sold it by the time he was 30. He had clients like IBM, Pfizer, and Accenture. So he is a senior statesman, in my view, in the profession of selling. He's Vistage as one of the top 50 speakers. He's also a top 10 sales consultant, according to Selling Power magazine, which I publish. And we researched it every year, and Andy always comes out in the top 10. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Andy. And I know you have a very important question for our audience right now.
I do. Before we do, thank you, Gerhard. Let's just kind of talk about the agenda real quick. We did the intro, and then the next thing is the question. What I want to know about what's your biggest hiring challenge. Then we'll do a little short presentation, a group exercise on the thing I think is the number one most important thing that will help you improve hiring. Then we'll do a little Q&A and a wrap up. So that's kind of our quick and dirty overview. So I would like to hear, this is where you participate. You don't have to turn your camera on if you're shy or didn't wash your hair this morning or you can't find your baseball cap. But I would like to hear, what is your biggest hiring challenge? And I'm going to take notes and actually write this down, but what is your biggest hiring challenge?
Why don't we start with David?
I think it is finding the right person, the right person that has got the DNA, that has got the skill and the will. And, those are the people that have the highest retention level. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are today, but it used to be 1 in every 2 is not there a year from now. So I'd like to get better at that. And I'm sure Andy and you, Gerhard, can help me understand a little bit better how to do that.
Yeah, the quick answer is it's hard to find people with the right mindset, the right skill set,
Yeah.
that master the right tool sets that the company provides.
Yeah.
And Andy has a lot to talk about how to develop strategies and tactics to remedy that situation and optimize the sales organization and optimize the revenues for the companies. Jeff, what's your take on the same question?
So we're actually going through this discussion right now, and it's going to be, what role is we're trying to expand our business into connected businesses right now. And so we're looking now, we've got a few back office people, but we're looking to hire another sales person. And so we're trying to figure out what's the selling profile is. I'm sure we're going to hear Andy talk. How do we define that? And what do we define as that right person when you're a smaller company of about $1 million and you're ready to take that next leap, stage 2.0 to get to 3 million, hopefully in the next year or two. And
Right.
what's the right role to bring on when you're a small company?
Yeah, and then you need to make a determination as to how much revenue can one person contribute in a small company without stealing a lot of your time.
Exactly.
So what is that number for you?
We would hope to get about 300 to 500,000 from that person.
Right. And how realistic do you think that is?
Well, as we expand our portfolio of products, I think we think it's going to we think it's gonna be a realistic number.
Yeah. Zach, want to chime in?
I've got plenty of challenges trying to determine which one I want to speak to. I think it really centralizes on a few things for me as far as, hiring challenges in my sales organization, kind of the first being talent profile. I've done different evaluation methods from, TTI to Clifton Strengths to, all these different evaluation models. And I've got salespeople that fall into so many different buckets. So what is the commonality that I have found within them? I can't say that I can land on what specifically it is that they do have in common that has made my current sales folks successful. Two, how to evaluate grit, because I feel like that is just like I've had certain folks that have fallen completely flat on their face in their first 12 months, but they had it in them to figure it out, and they did, and those are some of the best and most impactful people that I have. But how to do that evaluation up front in a recruiting or an interviewing process without being unreasonable, to that individual as far
Right.
as, that evaluation without having a job yet.
I know that
Really centralized around those two
yeah,
things.
that is a very, very critical question, and I know that Andy is going to cover that. But I want to give you a very quick answer.
Please.
The bigger the why, the bigger the try, the easier the how.
Mm.
Meaning, if you can identify why people are doing what they're doing and help them define that for themselves, then you become a guide that helps them identify the meaning of their work. And people are not just getting a job to make money. There's a different meaning associated with that that's related to their identity. And you want to have a conversation about why do you want to work for this company, sell this product to our special group of customers? What's it in for you? And let them define why they want the job or why they are doing what they're doing. I had a psychologist once travel with me, and we interviewed about 100 salespeople in a company, and we went to different offices and did one interview after another. And at the end of the day, we compared notes, and he came up with the idea is that they have identity issues, meaning that some people said, well, if that job doesn't work out, maybe I get a retail job, or maybe I open an antique store, or maybe I work for my uncle, and if they're not clear about the reason why they're in sales and why they do what they have chosen to do, then they're not good candidates, in my opinion.
Gerhard, I love that phrase you used. The bigger the why, what was the balance of it?
The bigger the try,
The bigger the try. Okay.
the easier the how.
Easier the how. Great. Terrific.
Because Zach said the operative word, which is grit. And grit is sticking to a task and doing whatever it takes for as long as it takes to make it happen.
Great. I love that. Thank you.
Jonathan, you want to chime in?
Sure, I like a lot of the input thus far, but in terms of attracting the right people, it does seem that it's only after someone hits the ground that they truly prove themselves. They may have the grit and stuff, but if they're unable to truly assimilate with the company and the mission, I think the rate of increased failure is probably higher than if there's that true assimilation. So from a hiring standpoint, I would dare to say that, one of the challenges that we face is finding, the right people. And I heard the DNA and stuff, but I think a lot of that's really tough to measure up front. It's not until they're put under certain selling circumstances does the real persona of the person tend to come out over time. I do like the comment that was made too about, someone fell flat on their face or several people fell flat on their face in the first 12 months. And then through sheer grit, they've picked themselves up, they've figured it out. And now there's that assimilation with the company that allows them to thrive as they move forward and stuff. So, the old cliche, win fast, lose fast. So I think it's important to identify the right people, and the people that are just destined for failure with no hope. I think you have to purge them pretty quickly to make sure they're substituted with someone who more accurately fits the wants and needs of the company.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And Andy has a wonderful solution for that, where you can predict the performance of the prospective salesperson in the territory with tests that have been proven, that hold up in court, that improve your ability to make the right decision by a large percentage point. I don't know exactly what the percentage point is, but we are all biased in making decisions about hiring a salesperson based on unconscious factors that we may not be even aware of. And that's why I think it's important to have some outside help like Andy to test the reality and then make the decision based on science and not on guts.
Mm. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else who wants to chime in?
Yeah, one quick chime in. We've recently been recruiting and hiring and hunting for sales talent. And a question that I like in our sequence is we lay out what a day in a hunting sales role looks like. Going out and physically getting in front of people and attending a chamber networking event and going out the rest of the afternoon and following up with email and cold calls to end your day and setting up tasks for the next day. And we just walk through that whole progression and ask that candidate, in that day when you shut down your laptop lid and you go talk to your spouse, how do you summarize your day to them? And just open that door and let them talk about it. And then say, do you feel energized or drained at the end of that day as a result of the work you put in? And that really tells you what you need to know about that person. Now, granted, they can lie, but generally, when you go about it in that type of questioning, they open up and tell you how they really feel. And now you have, if you will, a good summary of, is this a person that's energized by hunting or a person that's drained by hunting? Because if they're going to be drained, they're not going to last. If they tell their spouse, wow, I had a great day today and here's what I got to do today, you can tell by that language what their mindset is. Not to go scriptural here, but I'll pull an old scripture out of the Proverbs that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And that really summarizes how a person feels. So that's a good questioning that we've been able to apply to our interviewing process that's helped us a lot.
I love that question. I think it's very, very significant because it goes beyond logic. It goes to the heart and to emotions. And you don't want to hire a farmer for a hunter position. And there are not too many true hunters out there. They're hard to find. And I think the question is brilliant because you want to measure the level of energy that people are willing to invest in the challenge of winning sales for the company and winning customers for the company. And earning commissions for themselves. So I like this a lot. That's good, good insight. It's a good strategy. And Andy, what do you think?
Oh yeah, no, I love the scripture component. Um, and it's so true. So I've heard a lot of good comments, and I'm excited to share with you what I've learned over the years. I'll give you two quick stories, kind of going off script. What sent me down this journey is I owned a software company in the Netherlands years ago, and I hired this gal who her resume was right. They call them CVs there, but her resume was right. She worked at all the right companies. She'd had lots of great training. She hit quote everywhere. And she came in for the first 2 months, and then she played hooky and called in sick for the next 8. And Dutch employment law is such that I couldn't fire her. I had to get government permission, which was not easy to get. She called in sick every day. I finally drove by her house to make sure she was okay. She wasn't home. Left a note. Her mother called me, said she was sick. Didn't believe it. Hired a private detective who tracked her down in Greece and took pictures of her playing on the beach with her boyfriend. And I submitted those pictures with dates of a newspaper, and all the evidence I needed for the government to give me permission. But I had to pay her 100% of her wages. They gave me a 20% rebate, but for 8 months, I paid her 80% for playing hooky. And I thought that will never, ever, ever happen to me again. And that will never happen to one of my clients if we can come up with how do we identify people who will thrive in the role versus just get by, right? The thriving is, and I look, Luke, the way you said it, you come home at night, your spouse says, how was your day? And you go, it was awesome. I met X amount of new people. I got 3 opportunities in the pipeline versus, wow, this is a real grind. And so how do we find the people that thrive? And I'm going to go off on one other tangent, because I'm a big believer in grit. Until I understood what grit was, many aspects of my life, people told me I would fail. My first job in sales, I was a technical guy who got hired by a software company to sell. And I didn't know anybody who'd done it. Everybody said, don't do it. They'll sell their mother for the right price. They wear polyester, they're snake oil. And I'm like, well, I'll take the chance. And the CEO said, if it doesn't work out, we'll move you back into a technical role. A year went by. He walks into my office and he goes, I'm going to let you go. I said, why? He says, because you're not hitting quota. And I said, that's wrong. I pulled out my spreadsheet, showed him all my deals, the deals, the decision makers, the dates, the conversations, had the purchase orders. And he went down the list, and 3 of the deals, he goes, no, those are your bosses. And I said, no, they're not. Here's the evidence. My boss had been stealing my deals.
Ouch.
And he goes, I'm still going to let you go. And I said, why? And he said, because you're in a funk. And he was right. I was in a funk. And I said, tell you what, I will work for free for the next 30 days. You and I are going to agree on a number that I got to hit. If I hit that number, you'll pay me retroactively. If I miss that number by even 1/10%, I will go graciously. I will come into your office. I will thank you for giving me one more shot. And we're done. He goes, okay, you're on. I said, no, there's one more thing. You make me Bob's boss. I become the sales manager. He goes, okay, you're on. So for the next 30 days, we'd never been trained in selling. We were just grinding it out, calling people up. Hey, can I tell you about what I got? So I bought books on tape, Nightingale Conant, for anybody who remembers that. I would drive into work in the morning, listen to one side of the tape, drive home at night, listen to the other side of tape. I would be in the office at 6 because that's when data centers on the East Coast, the data center manager would come in. I'd call until midnight because that's when the data center managers in Hawaii would leave. And I'd listen to my tape on the way in, the way out. I found a sales coach who was a Vietnam vet who I think had not been out of his house in years, but he was a good sales coach. He smoked cigars. He had 9 cats. I'm allergic to cats. I don't think he cleaned the litter box in decades. I'd walk into his house. My eyes would be watering and tearing up. And we would walk through my deals because you know what? I was gonna hit my freaking number. And at the end of the month, I hit my number. The CEO paid me retroactively. He goes, I've never seen anybody turn it around. And I became the sales manager. And it just, how badly do you want it? That's the difference between somebody who can thrive and who wants to make it happen versus they're just going to get by. And when it gets tough, they bail out and go do something else. So I know I went off on my tangent, but the whole purpose of that is, how do we find other people like that?
Yeah.
How do we find other people like that? So I'm going to share, and what I'm going to share is, this is all based upon science. This is, I mean, it's some of my experience, but I hired an organizational industrial psychologist. We spent 2 years going through the research to see what does our opinion say, but what does the science say? So all this is going to be based upon science. And what I'm always curious about is, why do we hire a cat when we really wanted to hire a hunting dog? And now, I'm sorry, that's ironic because my wife wanted a cat, I wanted a dog. She won, she got the cat, and I named it Doggy. But guess what? It's still not a dog. So, anyhow, so why do we hire a cat when we wanted a dog? And think about what happens. We hire this cat, and then they need some training. So what do? We give them some sales training. We do some onboarding. We give them some sales training. Oh, we need improve our tech stack. So we go get some tech stack stuff. Then we grow a little bit. Oh, we need some sales enablement help. So we get some sales enablement. And now the big thing is we need AI. And don't get me wrong, all those things are important, but it's still, after a year of all those things, the cat is still a cat. And we wanted a hunting dog. So to me, I like to say, you pay on the front end or you pay on the back end, but either way you pay. You pay on the front end by really getting clear on what do we want. If that's a hunting dog, a guard dog, if it's a mouse chaser, whatever it is, you've got to get super, super, super clear on what you want. And if you don't, you hire the wrong person. Top Grading estimates that 50% of all hires are wrong. So that goes to David. Was it? I think you said 1 out of 2 earlier. And so that's congruent with other things I'm reading. So, but you pay on the front end and do it right, or you don't do it right, and then you pay on the back end. And I keep thinking, didn't Monty Python have a skit about turning a dog into a fish or something like that? So that's what we do for a year. And at the end of the year, and we feel guilty because it's not working out. We blame ourselves, and we are to blame, and we don't want to let them go, but we almost have to because the consequences are just too big. So these are the consequences. Now, this is a study done by EBSTA, and they did a sales benchmark. So this is 2024 data. So this is extremely recent. And what they found was 75% of reps miss quota. And they also found that the top 16% generated 83% of revenue. Now, what if you could hire 1, 2, or 3 of those 16 percenters? We'd have to identify them first. What does that look like? But what if we could hire one of those? What does that do for you? What does that do for your company or your team? What does that do for your investors? What does that do for your market or your market share? So what does that do? Any comments on that? Anybody surprised by that number?
In my own numbers right now, Andy.
Okay.
Let's see.
I'm sorry.
Not surprised.
I'm sorry. So now just know that, Zach, you're not alone. That doesn't make you feel better, but you're not alone. Good. So let's talk about the cost of the bad.
I want to chime in that the number of the percentage of quota missed is increasing steadily. It has increased over the last decade. I think 10 years ago it was like 49% of salespeople missed quota. And now
Yeah.
it's 75%. And now we have all this technology. Why hasn't technology made a difference? It's almost paradoxical where every technology that you buy comes with a super benefit that now salespeople can spend more time having good conversations with customers.
Hmm.
But what are those conversations like? And conversation mastery is not part of the regular sales training, but it begins with hiring. If the first button of a shirt is wrong, all the other buttons are wrong.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And sales training typically doesn't deal with belief systems or mindset or DNA. It tends to be process oriented or skills oriented.
Right.
But you have a problem if you don't deal with the mindset, even though you teach them great skills, they still can't execute.
Can we hear from Angela? Thank you for joining us, by the way. What are you hoping to get out from this masterclass?
Sales is so hard. Just try to learn anything that anybody can teach me. I'm technical oriented. My background is software engineering, and now I'm trying to sell insurance, financial product, and it is so hard.
What is the last book that you read on successful selling?
I don't think I've read one. Um, I don't think anyone recommended me one that really jumped out at me.
Well, my recommendation is that you go over to Amazon.com and this afternoon, and you look at the best-selling books on selling skills and sales process. And there are different authors that I could recommend, but I'd like for you to discover a world out there of extraordinary salespeople that have shared their secrets on how to become really super successful in sales. And that's your responsibility because if the company is not doing it, you want to do it. You want to change your job description right now to I am a student of professional selling, and I will do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to learn the skills I need to be the top in my profession. And with that mindset, you're going to acquire the skill set that will help you say, selling is actually easy. Bring me more problems to solve.
Thank you.
Keep us moving along now. So the cost of a bad hire. So the same folks who did the research on the previous slide found that the average quota for a salesperson was $1 million, and only they only got 25% of quota. So that's a loss. Think of that. That's an opportunity cost of 750,000. Now, if your folks have a quota that's less than that, let's say it's half, and it's 500,000. Okay, that's a lost opportunity of what 3,700. 375,000. So adjust it accordingly to what you want. But the fact is, if they're only reaching 25%, I have to wonder, are they even paying for themselves? So let's go look at 7 ways that 7 mistakes and what can we do to improve how we hire. So I'm going to share 7 of the 19 ways that I know of. And this is fascinating. The way you screen and interview a salesperson is the opposite of the way you screen and interview any other role. Any other role. And I did a informal survey on LinkedIn, and I found this fascinating. So the question was, is hiring a salesperson different than hiring any other role in your company? So the first survey was done with business owners, presidents. 100% came back and said yes. Then I did it again just for sales leadership. 100% came back and said yes. Then I did it again with the directors of HR, and 100% of them said there's no difference. So we already have a disconnect between people within the company on how do we screen and interview salespeople. So let's talk about, what the 7 mistakes are, and then I'll give details of each one. So the biggest one, number one, is inadequate job description. And to be more specific, it's a lack of understanding what the job really is. Second one is trusting your gut. Gerhard mentioned this just a little bit ago, trusting your gut in making your decision. Third one, using inappropriate assessments. I see this all of the time. It's painful. It's what caused me to write my book on the science of hiring quota busting sales teams. It was just supposed to be a book on assessments. Fourth, not leveraging AI. There's so much you can do with AI, and I'll get into why. Poor online reputation, whether it's Glassdoor or using other platforms. The other job platforms are now starting to rate companies based upon employee feedback. Unappealing job ad, I'll talk about that. And then the last is over-reliance on passive sales candidates, meaning people are looking for jobs, salespeople looking for jobs versus salespeople not looking for jobs. So you want to improve the job description. This, to me, number one, it needs to be updated yearly, probably twice a year at the speed of things are moving right now. Because if you look at a job description written a year ago, it probably did not include AI. Now, I saw that only 10% of companies have embraced AI, but 71% of CEOs said they would not hire a salesperson who didn't have some AI experience. Now, it didn't define what experience was. I'm assuming it's not heavy experience. It just means, can they spell AI? Do they know how to go to ChatGPT? Can they do a couple fundamental things? But it's got to be updated. And one of my sisters, and I hear this from salespeople all the time, she answered this ad, went in for an interview. It was for a management job. The ad was about management. The interview questions and discussion was about management. She went through the whole process. She got hired. And she calls me and she goes, "Hey, big brother, I've been at this company for a week. Everything was about management. It's not a management job. What should I do?" And now she has to decide, does she stay there for a year and suck it up? Or does she just bail out now? And I've heard that from salespeople over and over and over again. I hear companies say, "Hey, I hired this person. They were supposed to be a hunting dog, and the hunting dog didn't show up. The cat showed up." Well, it goes both ways. The salesperson's going, "Hey, you guys said you were the best in the market. You guys said you had all this tech stack and all this support. You don't have any of that." And I don't think companies intentionally misrepresented it. I don't think they understood what the job really was. So, what happens when you get the job description wrong? What happens when you go to write the ad? The ad will be written based upon a misunderstanding of the job. Resume, when you go to screen resumes, you're using the wrong criteria. When you go to do a phone screen, it's the wrong criteria. When you go to do interview, it's the wrong criteria. When you go to onboard them, you're onboarding the cat when you wanted the dog. I had a client who the HR department had done this long, very in-depth, expensive study on what they needed in the position. This was call center sales. But it was 5 years old. The job had morphed. HR refused to change it. So they're now running an ad. They're screening people. They're coming in for an interview. Now, when the interview process gets to the sales VP, he has to tell them all these different things that's totally counter to what they've been told up to that point. And there was a huge bailout, as there should be, because it was a mismatch, and he was frustrated because HR would not change. That's a huge disservice to everybody. Look at all the time that was wasted. So, yeah, it's you got to get this piece right because everything pivots from here.
Andy, can I offer just a tweak to what you're saying, which
Yeah,
is
David.
the foundation? Many years ago, I think it was Kevin Davis of Top Line Leadership taught me how to create a success profile. So
Yes.
beyond the job description, really identifying those traits, characteristics, skills, attributes, etc., of what that person should look like. And then that guides your questioning in the screening process, of course. You know, it helps you form questions around those particular skill sets or attributes. And to me, that's been something that's helped me tremendously.
And that leads into this slide. I call it evidence-based interview. What do you need them to do?
Yeah.
And your questions need to be around what's the evidence, because what happens? Most people go with their gut. We know from our research, from with working with the psychologists, that our gut's only 20% predictive of their ability to do the job.
Hmm.
We know that structured interviews that include evidence-based questions is 57% predictive of their ability to do the job. So that to me, that's 3 times more. And most people, they go with their gut. And I'm please excuse me, because I'm going to be a little crass. So I thought, well, people get married, divorce rate's 50%. How do we make our decisions? How long do we date? The average couple dates for 3 years. And think about what happens in those 3 years. Vacation together, family time, church. Yeah, they might have cuddled once or twice, but all these things happen in 3 years, right? If you're around your family and friends, so you have all this information over 3 years, and we still get it wrong 50% of the time. So what makes us think we can trust our gut and identify a top performer in just a period of 3 interviews in a month? It's like, nope, not very good at that. So a evidence-based structured interview is 3 times more predictive than going with your gut. Next, using the correct type of assessment. So the psychologist that I worked with, her name is Tiffany, and Tiffany said there's really 3 things. Her specialty is just helping companies hire, and she develops the profile of what they need to hire for, and her specialty is really hard jobs or really hard positions. And she basically, I'm not going to read the quote so much as she said, there's 3 things. Not necessarily in any order. It goes, people trust their gut when they shouldn't, that they don't understand what the job really is, and they misuse or misunderstand what assessments are. And to me, what I see is too many times we give our son a pregnancy test to see if he has COVID. And it's the same thing here. So what's the difference? Because there's all kinds. There's behavioral assessments, there's personality profiles, skills assessments, culture assessments. And what we see is those are only somewhere between 20 to 33% predictive. What you have to have is an assessment that's questions were designed specifically for that job, and that it's customized to your ideal candidate profile. And when you have that, you've got 72% predictive ability, accuracy in their ability to do the job. So again, you're talking 2 to 3 times more accurate than what we typically do. What I hope you're seeing is we've already talked about 3 things, and there's incremental improvement in each one of these. Better job description, right? Better interviewing practices, better, more accurate type of assessments. And so here's my brief, shameless intermission commercial. Gerhard, did you want to say something?
Yeah, my personal opinion, I've looked at a lot of assessments. I think that 80% of all assessments that are used by sales organizations are more what I would call psychological amusement.
Yes.
To curious minds want to know, what's their horoscope, or what is their color preference? Is this a blue or a red, or whatever? There's a Lucia test, a Swiss psychologist came up with that, that divided people by their color preferences. So they're all, whether you're a driver or, you're an owl or an eagle. I mean, there are a lot of very fascinating I remember walking to a Marriott Vacation Club sales organization in Florida, and they had next to their desks their description of what their profile was, which had nothing to do with their ability to sell. But it was good for team building. It was good for conversations, but not conversations with customers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good to know, hey, I'm not saying throw out what you're using. It has its place, right? How do I coach this person? How do I manage this person? Will they fit into our team? So, you have to understand what the tool is for. You don't use a hammer as a glass cutter. It'll break the glass. It just won't get that perfect circle you were looking for, right? So you got to use the right tool for the job. And since we're talking about hiring salespeople, I'm giving you that perspective versus the other perspective. So here's my shameless commercial. There are 19 areas you can improve your recruiting process. I can give you a 10-minute survey to answer, and then I'll compare how you are compared to other companies and give you a report and tell you things that you can do to improve your hiring. So if you want to do that, you can send me an email at amiller@bigswiftkick.com, or you can call me on my cell, 703-405-6036, and I'll set you up. No pressure, no obligation. Just if you're going, I'm sick and tired of hiring cats when I need hunting dogs, then let's take a look at the areas that you can fine tune. So there's my commercial. All right. So next couple things, and then we're going to get to an exercise. Leveraging AI. AI is here to stay. There's huge advantages. The purpose of this, in my mind, is speed to hire. We spend too much of our time interviewing the wrong people. We spend too much of our time, when you're interviewing the wrong people, it means your calendar's getting filled up. I actually had a sales VP say to me, HR is filling up my calendar with all these people who don't qualify. And I'm afraid, it's going to push the people who are qualified a couple weeks out and they'll be gone. And she was exactly right. She was exactly right. So, the purpose of AI, you can use it to improve your ad. Hey, how do I spice this thing up? You can use it to improve your searches. You can use it to scan resumes. You can use it to improve your interview questions. You can record interviews if you have a structured interview, evidence-based. You can record it, take the transcript, load it into AI and say, hey, take this transcript from the interview, compare it to what I was supposed to be doing. What did I miss? So you can use it as a coaching tool. So, and you can use it for scoring. So there's lots of things that you can do. But the purpose of all that is speeding up your time of engagement, time to hire. Fifth thing, then we'll get two more. Your online reputation. Glassdoor. I learned this from a young kid at the gym. He goes, I said, hey, how you doing? He goes, I just graduated. I said, well, okay, what's next on your list? He goes, well, I want to find a job. I said, tell me about that. What do you want to? I want to get a job in marketing, and I've seen some ads. I said, what do you do once you see the ads? He goes, the first thing I do is I go to Glassdoor. And I go to Glassdoor because I want to see what the employees say. And if they don't have good reviews, I don't even respond to their ad. And my research shows that 50% of all job seekers go look at your Glassdoor rating. Now, what does that mean? I hear everybody says, I want an A player. Well, the question is, are you an A player company? Glassdoor, companies that are A player companies have a rating of 4.0 or above. Companies that are average, that would be you got a C in school, has a rating of 3.2, 3.1. Companies that are below average are below 3.0. So take a look at your reputation now. The CEOs always come back to me and go, well, Andy, that's where the disgruntled go. That's right. That's where the disgruntled employees go. But whatever's on that, whatever's being said there, perception is the reality. I had one CEO say to me, we're not getting any applicants. And I've talked to HR and they don't understand why. And I said, are you doing exit interviews? They go, Yeah. I said, then HR is not asking the right questions, or they have some bad news that you don't want to hear. Because I can tell you why you're not getting applicants. He goes, okay. I said, it's going to be harsh. You want to hear it? He goes, yeah. I said, because your C-suite sucks. And I say that because here it is on Glassdoor. I work for this company and the C-suite sucks. That's a quote. So who's going to come work for you when they're reading that kind of stuff about you? He goes, okay. I said, so you need to come up with a campaign to improve your online reputation. And I can't believe it's that bad. It just isn't being advertised. Last two, attracting the right candidate. So I mentioned about having an ideal candidate profile. What do they look like? I had an ad. I won't put this in writing, and I lost it when I had a computer crash. But the ad, I love the ad. The ad was, make more money than you ever dreamed of working for the biggest jerk in the world. Call Bruce at this number. And I'm like, that's pretty good. If you want an opportunity to make money, if you're money motivated, and he's telling you what he is, he's a jerk. I'm going to be a jerk, but I'm going to show you the way. That's pretty good. So the Shackleton ad, for those who don't know, Shackleton was an explorer. There was a race to Antarctic Circle, and this was his ad. Now there's no proof that this ad really happened, so it's probably fiction, but it's still a great ad. Men wanted for hazardous journeys, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger. Safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in event of success. So he's talking about the journey, which is only going to be a select few who are going to get excited about the risk, the adrenaline rush. And he's telling you, here's all the dangers. This is going to weed a lot of people out, but it's going to attract a very specific kind of person because he knew what his ideal candidate profile was. And you're not looking for quantity, you're just looking for quality. So we've got to get the ad right. Take a look at the ad. I had a client in Mexico call me and goes, we're not getting anybody. I said, send me your ad. And then they sent me the ad, and I said, okay, screen share, let's read through the ad. I said, if you were a sales rep, would you apply to this? He goes, no. I said, it sounds generic, doesn't it? Sounds like everybody else. He goes, yeah. I said, you got to think about this. This is a dating ad. You're single and you're trying to attract somebody that you want to date for, assume a long-term relationship. Is this the ad you want to write? He goes, no. And I said, okay, let me give you some things. Let's go spice this thing up. Last one, vigorous outreach to passive candidates. What happens is there's people involved in the recruiting or interviewing process, but they've got other things to do too. They're not dedicated to this full time. So their calendar gets full. And then, if it's a sales VP or manager, well, they got a meeting with this client, or they got a trip to this place or trip to that place. So what happens is you've identified some good A players, but you can't get to them fast enough. Google makes it a requirement that all their executives spend 1 day a week recruiting. 1 day a week recruiting. And they're not looking for the folks who are applying for a job. They're going on LinkedIn, they're typing in their criteria, who fits that ideal candidate profile, and then they're reaching out to them 1 day a week. So, we've got to get aggressive, and it's complicated because you have boomers are retiring, less people are coming into the workforce, population decline everywhere in the world except for 2 countries, and you have people less engaged. So this is going to be more work. Now, remember I said you're going to pay on the front end or pay on the back end. So if you're going, oh, that sounds like too much work, I don't want to do it, let's just get some bodies. Okay, you hire a cat and you'll spend a year trying to turn it into a dog, and then you'll wash, rinse, and repeat. And a year from now, you'll start the whole thing up, and it's painful, right? So quick exercise. Let me just see how we're doing on our time.
We're good.
Yeah, okay. So David, you were talking about this, about what is it that they need to perform. So let's talk about what typically goes into a job description. And this is where I'm going to ask you to participate because I've done a little too much talking. What typically goes into a job description?
Key duties, responsibilities.
Duties, okay. What else?
The job title, the territory,
Title, territory,
Location,
location, what else?
description of the company,
What's that?
description of the company itself
Description of the
that
company,
you're working
yeah.
for. Narrative of the role.
The
Yeah.
role.
Candidate will do X.
Yeah, kind of obligation or objectives or obligations or whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
Expectations, yeah.
yeah.
Compensation range, target.
Yep, compensation, good.
A good job description would really also include how that company differentiates itself in the marketplace, culture, things related to those as well.
Okay, good.
somebody texted previous experience.
Okay. So we'll call that qualifications. So let's take a look at how we did. Now, by the way, when I ask a company to send me their job description, normally what they send me is what they're putting in the ad. So we already know that they're going to end up with a cat because they haven't taken the time to do the work. So here's generic. There's a couple things you mentioned that I don't have in here, but you're right. So job title, whom they report to, location, territory, what's the objective or purpose of the job, core responsibilities and duties, abilities, competencies, qualifications. By the way, qualification, I usually get this really long list, but it's never prioritized. So it's like must be good with people, must be prolific in Microsoft Office, and they're all weighed the same. It's like, no, they're not all the same. If their job is to hunt 60% of the time, in the job description, you should define it as number one, 60% of the time hunting, right? If that's what you want. Compensation, and I didn't put culture in there, and easily we could put that in there, add one or two more things. Now, what I like to do is have a performance-based job description. So if you put somebody on a performance improvement plan, just exaggerating a little bit, what goes into a performance improvement plan?
Activities like having 8 conversations a day with new prospects.
Yeah, activities, KPIs. Yeah, what else?
Objectives.
Objective, yeah.
I would say
Time.
basically the things you set up for the role at the beginning, you discussed with them. And now, whatever it is, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, they're not performing. It's then, okay, to have a discussion with them on, hey, we agreed to this day one. This is what you were going to need to do to be successful in this role.
So expectations.
Yes, a year
Yeah.
later, you're not meeting the role expectations.
What else? That's good.
It's time-bound expectations, tangible results within a time frame.
Okay, like that. What else? How about what's required to get fired?
Oh,
Now, you might say it a different way, but let's take a look at it.
consequences.
And again, there's always one or two things we can tweak or add, right? So your job is sales, right? What's the objective of the job? We need you to grow the territory by 20% or whatever it is, or increase revenue. Core responsibility and duties, that's more like a refresher, right? Expectations on behaviors or how their time is utilized. The KPIs, these are the things that you're measured by. This is how we know if you're being successful or not successful. And then, if you don't hit these, we're letting you go in 30, 60, 90 days or whatever it is. Why don't we combine these two into a job description? Why does the job description not have your KPIs? Why does it not have how much time? Hey, here's the three most important things that you should spend your time on, and it should be 60% this, 20% this, 15% this, and the remaining 15% is for all this other stuff. We don't do that. And then we don't define what non-performance looks like. That's a pretty word for getting fired.
And Andy, I apologize. I thought it's, I don't know where I got the word, but I thought it was performance improvement plan. A
Yeah,
PIP.
well, I said I'm exaggerating a little bit because nobody thinks of performance improvement as part of the job description. It's always after the fact they're not performing. So that was to help everybody get their head in kind of the
Yep,
right
that's
place.
good.
So so Jeff, you were right. You heard me correctly. Yeah, you should be in sales. You're a good listener. So 7 takeaways. And now I'm going to explain, why the 7 of the 19. Improve the job description, right? If we don't understand what the job really is, it won't be represented properly and everything from there on falls apart. Using structured interview-based interviews, 3 times more predictive than the way that most of us do it. Using a sales-specific measurement assessment. So the questions are in a sales context. It's specific for sales. It's been validated on a sales population, and it's been tailored to your ideal candidate profile, 3 times more predictive than any other type of assessment that you can use. Leveraging AI, that's speed to hire. Your best people are off the market. Last I saw was 21 days, but that's not localized. Some areas will be faster, some areas will be slower, different industries. But I think the whole message there is most of us hire slower than the best people are. The best people are off the market faster than we move. Improve your online app reputation. A players want to go to A player companies. So if you're going, I want an A player, and your Glassdoor or whatever platform you're using doesn't have you rated as an A player company, you're not getting A players. You got to tune that up. Attracting the right candidates. This is about thriving versus getting by. We can hire a lot of people and get by, but we saw what get by is. They only hit 25% of quota. Thriving is 16% who produce 83% of the revenue. How do we get more of those? And then vigorous outreach. You can't just write a sexy ad and think that the floodgates are going to open and you're going to get 100 people applying a day now. The circumstances have changed. We've got to be aggressive, and it's in sales, it's prospecting, but we're prospecting for candidates. So, questions?
Sorry, can you show that last slide again?
See which way that
That one?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through what everybody said they wanted.
Do you have any stats on how long it's normally taking to fill a position on average? Is there a number you can share?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Andy, I was curious on the last point number 7 there. What do you mean by a passive candidate?
Okay, so that David, thank you. That's a good question. So there's active candidates and there's passive candidates. And active candidates are candidates who are actually actively looking for a new job.
I see. Okay.
The passive candidates are people who are not thinking about a new job,
Got it.
but they fit your ideal criteria. And so that outreach to them would be something like, and I think, well, Gerhard said it. It was about the will and the try.
The bigger the why, the bigger the try.
Bigger the why, the bigger the try.
Easier the
So
how.
for passive candidates, the outreach to them is, if I could show you a career opportunity that was 20 to 30% better than what you have today, would you like to talk? Now, I didn't say more pay, because if somebody's just talking to you purely about more pay, they're short time. I want somebody who's going to drink the Kool-Aid and wants to be part of the mission. And so it needs to be an improvement in their life, and that needs to be part of your interviews. How does being here make your life better?
Thank you. It's good.
By the way, the average time to hire a B2B salesperson typically ranges from 30 to 60 days, encompassing the entire recruiting process from job posting to offer acceptance. However, the timeline can vary by company size, urgency of the position, complexity of the role, and candidate availability. So this is just from ChatGPT.
Yep. And how quickly are the fastest ones off the market?
Very
Like
fast.
it's like 21 days. It's faster than we move.
Yeah.
So that's why I say,
Speed.
speed to hire is so critical.
Speed is your friend.
Speed is your friend. Which is why I like to assess up front and only talk to the people who pass my assessment, because we know they can sell, but you still need there's a whole lot more you want to know about them, right? But
Right.
if they can sell, then I'm talking to people who can do the job, and I'm not having my calendar filled up with people who can't.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean necessarily, hey, maybe they don't fit the culture, maybe I don't like them. Who knows? Because you still have to look at the whole person. It's not just the magic assessment. And that's one of the things I see people rely on assessments too much. Oh, well, they were approved. Well, what about the rest of the person? What other questions?
Well, I'd like to hear from our guests today. What is your best practice for hiring that we already had heard a number of really good ideas during this conversation, but I'd like to learn a little bit more of what you have tried that you feel works well.
I try to focus on two things, skills and wills, during the interview process, and try to understand the balance between the two of those. Attitude, obviously, and will is so key and fundamental. They have the skills but don't have the attitude or will. How high are they on the 1 to 5 scale? And
Right.
and I try to understand that composite when interviewing people.
How many people have you hired in the last year, in 24?
I've coached other people, probably 30 people to 40 people, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right.
Coached other companies, but that's been it in the last year. Prior to
Right.
that, quite a few more. Managed some national sales
And-
force. Whatnot.
And have you used assessments before? And if so, what assessment do you like?
I haven't really used assessments, so that piqued my interest today. Are there one or two that you would recommend?
Andy?
Well,
Yeah.
that's a conversation we should have offline, because it's really about, do you need a screwdriver, hammer, pair of pliers? It's about identifying the right tool for the job.
Okay.
So maybe you have a separate conversation with Andy, David. What do you
Yeah,
think?
would
Yeah.
love to, Andy. Yeah.
Yeah. Luke, what is your best practice for hiring that you think works best that you want to share?
Yeah, it's really a very candid first interview in the screening process to make sure you've got the right profile. We've primarily been looking for hunting roles in the last year, and you got to be just audacious in your attempt to make sure that you don't paint the wrong picture. This is 100% outbound hunting role. Most important part of your success is your grit, your grind, your attempt, you're trying to weed out somebody that thinks that marketing's going to provide their leads, or that they can sit behind a desk and be successful. So it's really just a very honest conversation in that first interview to understand if you have a bird dog or if you have a farmer, and you can weed that out to the best of your ability in that first interview. We also do use an assessment tool that helps a lot. It's a lot simpler than some that I've used, but it really focuses on, do you have someone with high or low autonomy, high or low sociability, patience, conformity, and you're really, in salespeople, you want somebody with autonomy that has social skills, that generally aren't too patient, and then you can kind of see between conformity and detail on the final. But we use that in the first layer of screening just to say, hey, we clearly know that this is a cat, not a dog, and it's not going to be a good fit. But and the other part we look for is job hopping, which I think a lot of people do, but I don't want a candidate that switches jobs every 18 months. I'm looking for somebody that will put the time in to learn, to grow. And another part in the first interview is understanding if they are a self-learner. If they're going to rely solely on the organization to grow them, we're going to fail them. We do a good job of growing our sales staff, but I love when I hear questions about what was the last book that you read? What was the last podcast that you listened to? And I like to understand, do I have somebody that's going to constantly sharpen the saw? Because if they don't do that, probably not going to be successful.
Important. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because you embody the same spirit that the founder of Toyota came up with. He says, always better, never best. And I know when I interviewed Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce.com, he loved that idea. And he made it a mantra for the early days for everybody that worked for Salesforce.com. And then later, I had a conversation with Michael Weening, who is the CEO of Calix. That's a $3.5 billion company, a public company. And guess what his mantra is? The same. He worked at Salesforce, and always better, never best. So that conviction, that deep conviction that you have to look for that improvement DNA in your salespeople, once you find that, then it's a good fit for your company. So, Luke, how many salespeople do you have in your company now?
We have, let's see, I think we have about 20, 22 salespeople.
Yeah, and honestly, how many, and off the record, how many make quota in 24? Percentage?
Percentage wise, probably between 50 and 60%.
Andy, here's somebody to learn from.
Yeah.
You're doing really well, Luke.
Thank you.
It's
I have a
amazing.
good team. I've had some good mentors.
Yeah.
Very
Who was
good.
your mentor?
A couple different people, I would say.
Yeah.
One's probably my current boss. He's old school, if you will.
Yeah.
He told me early in my career that if you're waiting on marketing to feed you, then you're going to starve. And that settled really well. Probably one of the most impactful people from a mentality standpoint was a sales trainer I had. I worked for Cisco Food Service, and it was Pat Luce, a learning and development manager out of Indiana. And he embodied that same methodology you talked about from Michael Weening. I know Michael as well, and you have to constantly be sharpening your skill set. If you think you know everything about sales, you're going to fail, because sales develops, sales change, the market changes, your ICP changes. I can't tell you the number of times in my sales career that what we sell and how we sell it changes. So those are probably the two most impactful people for me.
That's cool.
Nice.
Jeff, what is your best practices when it comes to hiring?
Use it at assessment.
Which
Yeah.
one do you use?
I use the OMG one.
OMG?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. It seems to have a very insightful, thorough, and it measures sales.
right,
Others in the past, as we're certified, with DISC also as an example, we'd never use DISC to hire salespeople.
right.
They have a sales version, but we would never use that.
Which is ironic because DISC actually has on the second paragraph on their website, don't use this for predicting a candidate's ability to do the job.
Andy, could I ask you to switch to the contact slide?
Yeah, yes. There we go.
Because some people want to know how to get in touch with you. A Miller at bigswiftkick.com. So how did you come up with that bigswiftkick.com?
Oh, you want to know my marketing exercise? So we took a look at our personality types, and we tend to be direct, and we looked at who we talk to. Typically it's CEOs and C-suite. And we looked at the conversations that we've historically had over the years that made the biggest difference. And what we found is we had to have tough conversations, that people needed a big, swift kick. Now, we don't complete that sentence. Most people's minds go there, so we don't need to complete it. But we thought that's what we need to do. And the people go, we love that name. Now, it's funny because executives look at that and they go, I love that name. It's brilliant. I remember it. And employees go, I don't like your name. And it's like, that's okay. A, you're not my target audience. But B, do you remember that coach you had in school, or that teacher you had that saw more in you than you saw in yourself, and really held your feet to the fire, and you hated it while they were doing it, but 10, 20 years later, you look back and wish you could find them and send them a letter going, thank you. You holding me to a higher standard definitely changed my life. And they go, yeah, I go, that's who we are.
So I have a few more questions for you, Andy. And the first one is, what is your recommendation or policy when it comes to hiring somebody from the competition?
I've just not seen that work out well. I don't know. I mean, I hadn't thought about it from a moral or ethical perspective. It just, you would think taking somebody who's selling the same thing to the same people for basically a similar price, that'd be easy. Just pop them out of one place and pop them into another. Culture is very different. Management's very different. All that. And I've seen that happen with. At one time, I was working with 3 different competitors, and I watched people jump from place to place, and every time they jumped, they failed miserably.
Right. And
So from observation, I am just not a fan of that. I think what happens is they get discovered that they're not doing very well, so they'll just go somewhere else until they get discovered again.
so there are 3 talent pools that I want to talk about, and I get your opinion from which to recruit that most people don't think about.
Okay.
And the first talent pool is teachers. Because some people tell me that they like to hire teachers because they know how to educate customers, and they can learn very easily because good teachers are always good learners and good listeners. The second talent pool is ex-military, like former Marines. The veterans that come back and that have handled complex war technology or have been risking their lives for the country, that have a propensity to follow orders. They tend to work out really well because I know a company that has like 8 former Marines that work for them. They're doing an amazing job, and it's run a little bit like a military operation. So that's the second talent pool that I would recommend. There's a third talent pool that people don't think about that I think deserves a lot more attention, which is all the sales universities, the universities that have a professional selling skills program. And there are about 100 universities that teach that. And it's a 2-year program in many, like Texas A&M and Northwestern Illinois University or Bryant University, or there is the Patterson University in New Jersey, the University of Miami. They all have professors that teach sales. Like there's Joël Lebon, who is a professor at Johns Hopkins that teaches a sales for an MBA class. So those salespeople have to make cold calls. They have to learn the skills. They have to practice those skills. They're participating in international student collegiate sales competitions, and they're about, I would say 2,000 salespeople in that talent pool that are being developed that you can recruit from the university at a much lower cost with a much higher level of proficiency.
Good idea.
Yeah, I agree. So a comment on those three. Teachers, I would add to teachers, retiring ministers, teachers and ministers, excellent people skills, communications, counseling, understanding, reading people. I mean, excellent. So that they have the skills. You're gonna have to teach them a little bit of skills. Make sure the will up fits to your mission, right? Because they can sell stuff they believe in. They can't sell stuff they don't believe in. And then there's the whole belief system, because sometimes the belief system is counter to the way you need to be in sales. So you may need to put them through a year-long training, in training, grooming, shaping. So that's important to know on the front end and make sure that you define it. I've got a client who does that and puts them through a 2-year development program. And they do excellent. Ex-military, love it. A lot of the ex-military folks say that they miss the camaraderie of being in the military. So if you can make sure that you've got an environment that helps replace the camaraderie that they were missing. And yeah, I mean, structure. Listen, they got grit. They went through boot camp, whether they saw action or not, but they went through boot camp and they're used to taking orders. So with that, you're going to have to be very directive with them. And then the sales university. So I worked with the University of Houston years back. And it was interesting because there weren't at that time too many universities that you could get a degree in sales. What they found was they had it as a minor, not as a major. So they found that the people that went through the program with a minor, computer degree with a minor in sales, biology or chemistry with a minor in sales. So they could go to a specific industry with that educational background plus a minor in sales. And they had, you had to apply just like a job. They only took X amount of people. I forget what it was, maybe 200. There was a sales lab, which was pass fail, and that was with a quota. You went in, you sat in a cubicle, you sold real stuff. It was a lot of times it was related to school sponsored, sponsorships and the publications or whatever, but you sold real stuff and you either hit quota or you didn't. If you didn't hit quota, you failed and you could repeat one more time. But if you failed the second time, you're out of the program. And you had 50 of the Fortune 500s who sponsored that program, and they would get first shot at career day. And every single person got gobbled up. And I talked to 3 CEOs who were there, and they say these people, we hire them and we bring them in and put them on the fast track because their skills and their heads in the right place and they hit the ground running and they pass even the senior people that we have. So, yeah, I think that's, those are great suggestions.
Let's come up with a few more questions from our team in maybe David, do you have a question, or Luke, or Jeff, Jonathan? We are here to help.
Andy, is your book searchable on Amazon?
Yeah, if you go to Amazon, just search The Science of Hiring Quota Busting Sales Teams.
Okay.
And it's there. It's full of lots of research and data. I don't have anything in there about developing the job description. I wrote the book before I realized that was a problem. So I need to update the book and
I was going to say time for a new edition, right?
it is time for
Right.
it is time for a new edition. It just writing a book is not so easy.
Mm.
Just put it that way. Way more effort to do it and get it right. And writing a book's just half the challenge. Then you got to market it. Luke, as you said, there's no marketing department that's going to feed the leads. If you ever saw Little Shop of Horrors and the plant saying "Feed me, Seymour," I don't want to create a bunch of lead junkies going, "Feed me more leads, feed me more leads." It's like, no, you got to do it yourself. Go make it happen.
Somebody is saying, is our KPIs kind of classified information to include them in the job ad?
Oh, no. Okay, so here we have confusion between what is a job description and a job ad. The job description is a very detailed internal document so that everybody understands what the job really is. And anybody who's going to interview people for that job needs to read the job description. The KPIs you typically would not put in the ad. The ad is the fishing bait to get the fish to nibble on the worm. It's the worm. So what do you need to put in that? You know, you need to put in there, if you got a great Glassdoor rating, say it. If you've got an amazing culture, if you're the leader in the market, say it. If you develop people, you know, one mistake I see companies make is they think they're going to get people young with no experience and pay them very little, but they're going to ramp up quickly and blow the quotas out. It's like, no, you know, you either get young and inexperienced and you invest in them and develop them, or you get senior and experienced and you pay them what the market says they should get. But you can't get both. You get one or the other. But the job ad does not have KPIs and all that stuff. You use the job description to shape the ad, but the ad needs to be, well, like the Shackleton ad. Just tell them the scary parts, sell the vision, sell the dream, and yeah. So there's a big difference between the job description, that's internal document, job ad, that's the candidate facing promotion.
Andy, in your career, what can you share a story of the best salesperson you have ever hired?
I can't think of an individual, but I can think of a quality.
Okay.
The best salespeople I've seen don't get bogged down in the product or the service. That they focus on how this makes a difference for their prospects. And I actually think that the guys I think are the best were the ones that really didn't understand the product or the service. All they knew is this is what it does for people. And when they don't know that piece, they can't get bogged down in it.
Right. The reason I'm asking is I want to share something from that I've learned in working in Austria, in France, and in Germany, and England, and the United States. And what I found is that the Germans tend to get down into the weeds with products in technical terms. The French, they are much better at building relationships and having fun with people and breaking bread and having good dinners or lunches and drinks. And Americans talk more about ROI, what it does. Here's what it does. Here's the net benefit. It's the value. But what I've learned is that in some situations, people want to spend more time building a relationship first. Others want to know more about the details and they want to go into the weeds of the nitty-gritty very early on, and others later on. And the conversation about value, you don't know where to position it. But what I would recommend to anybody is the best salespeople do not commit to a fixed sales process. They know that there are 5 or 6 different pillars of a sales process, but they're not making the decision of which pillar to put up first. They'll listen to the customer first and then make the decision. So they build the process together with the customer that fits the customer, that fits the customer's personality, their style, their way, their preferences for the conversation. And so I'm almost advocating a customer-focused sales process that's individualized, that's hyper-personalized, and that's the future of sales, in my opinion.
So Andy, I have one. You've been doing this a long time and I've known Andy for a long time, but what do you see on both fronts? What Gerhard just talked about from the sales process and so forth, but also hiring as this topic. What do you see as the number one blind spot on companies that are not being successful with their sales team? Number two, they're not making successful hires.
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand the question. So the first
Sure.
question was just
First question is,
sales organizations not being successful.
right, not having a successful team, 30-40% of the team is making quota. What do you, when you help those companies, what do you see as the number one blind spot out there?
That's hard to say because there's so many pieces on that, which is why I always start off with what I call a sales MRI. Because I want to diagnose, like, let's say I have a back problem and I go to the doctor. Well, okay, is it because it's muscle strain, or is there something wrong with my bone, my structure, or is one foot or leg shorter than the other? It's just showing up in my back. So there's lots of things that cause the pain, or am I have a knee problem and I'm favoring the knee? I mean, I don't know. So it's the same thing with the sales organization. I think the biggest mistake I see is they haven't done a root cause analysis. So they decide they want to do something and they're treating the symptom, which is going to take time, money, and energy and not get an improvement. So I'm always, let's do an MRI, figure out what the real issue is, and then let's see if the juice is worth the squeeze, because maybe the will is not there. Maybe the why is not there. If the why and the will aren't there, I don't care what you provide to them. Even if you spoon feed them leads, they're not even going to pick up the phone and call them. So that to me would be the existing teams. And you've got, what's their process and what's their messaging and what's their strategy and what's the role of sales leadership? Did they take their number one rep and did they try to take a rainmaker? And then people don't realize that the sales manager job is a coaching job, and they take their rainmaker and move them into a coaching job, but nobody told the rainmaker their job is to coach now. So there's lots of elements, not easy to answer. And then the hiring, I really think it's back to the get clear on the job.
Thank you.
Jeff, what would be your answer? What are you speculating?
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Sure.
Well, what would be your answer? If I ask you, what is the blind spot?
I love Andy's MRI analogy, and I do use that, and I do think, in that, you're right, for your back, the spine, but yet the pain is in the front leg and the calf, which I'm going through right now. And I'm putting ice on my calf and my leg, and it finally went to a chiropractor, and he said, it took x-rays and stuff, and he goes, no, it's your back, it's your spine. It's not, it has nothing to do with your leg. So it's a great analogy. So I think they treat the symptom. And I think you need to do a root cause analysis of some sort to identify where the problems are before you start trying to fix things that you think are the problem.
Can I give you my answer?
Sure.
Please.
My grandmother always said that the fish stinks from the head. What I found is that most of the problems that sales organizations are facing are not necessarily the fault of the hiring or the salesperson, but the manager or the CEO. And that's something that is a blind spot that, when you read a whole bunch of articles on leadership in Harvard Business Review, you realize that the leader of an organization can make the most difference. I'll give you an example. When Bill McDermott, the CEO of ServiceNow, left SAP, ServiceNow was at $39 billion in market cap. And 4.5 years later, today, their market cap is over 200 billion. And they haven't changed a lot of the technology, but that leadership style that Bill McDermott has, which is he has a very high IQ and he has a very high EQ. So emotional intelligence and actual intelligence together translates into a strategic, charismatic type of leadership that changes everybody, that changes everything, not just people, but also processes and outcomes. And I think that sales organization need to hold the leaders' feet to the fire. And if they don't perform, then they should be replaced and not just have musical chairs down the line.
That's right. And
I like
Garrett, you just identified why we named ourselves Big Swift Kick, because what we do is, and sometimes when I'm talking to CEOs, I go, listen, we use science and candor to help you identify how to get exponential growth. But here's what I don't tell them. I need the science to show them that they're not doing their job. If I interview some people and then come back to them and say, you're not doing your job, in a nice way, they won't believe me. But when I have the cholesterol test that says your cholesterol is high, yeah, you can choose to ignore it if you want to, but I have the science, and now I'm the doctor telling you, like, it's your life, you choose, but here's what we know. Hence Big Swift Kick.
That's awesome.
That is great. That's great. Yeah, and your answer before about promoting all these salespeople, there's a great book, Cracking the Sales Management Code, and it hits that right on the head. He said, a great salesperson doesn't like structure, doesn't like cadence, doesn't like to be told what to do, but they go and get it done for you. Then they take that person and they promote him. So what does he do? He doesn't have structure. He doesn't have cadence. He doesn't have any rules. And he creates people that aren't like him or her out there being successful in sales.
Yeah.
So I like that. That was good.
Well, Andy, we need to wrap it up. We're already in overtime.
Well, thank you, everybody, for attending, and thank you for participating. And Gerhard, thanks for helping me promote this. And I will turn it over to you to close us out.
Well, I want to thank the audience for participating so actively. My plan is to have a transcript of the conversation, and I will create an executive summary for you that we send out to everybody that participated. And Andy, you get to see it before we send it out, but my plan is to have it sent out by Friday. Andy, this was so enjoyable to work with you and to learn from you. It is amazing how impactful one good hire can make, the difference a good hire can make in the sales organization in terms of the bottom line, but also I think that there's a spiritual dimension to what you're doing because your contribution helps improve the profession of selling. And you've done so much for so many companies to make them better sales organization with your knowledge. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Gerhard. I appreciate that. And I'm hoping some people take me up on the offer to let me take a look at your process, see how I can help. Because I really do want to help. Whether you engage me after that or not, it's totally up to you. But you know, I think sales is a wonderful profession and love to find ways to make it better.